Hi everybody, I'm Cindy Winget, the author of 3 Gothic Horror Mashups, and welcome to my channel. So it's the end of the year, we're into December, and so I think it's time to talk about my favorite books of the year. So these are my top 10. So I know this month isn't over yet, and so I do have the caveat that, what if I had a potential 5-star read in the month of December? I think that's probably unlikely because I like to read a lot of holiday themed books during December, and they just don't tend to be 5-star reads. They're just fun and festive. They're not groundbreaking usually. So I don't think that would happen. But if somehow I got a 5-star read in the month of December, I will let you know in my December wrap up. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. My first one is a science fiction novel by John Mars, and this is called The Family Experiment. And this is actually my first John Mars book, so I need to go back and read the rest of the series because I didn't realize that this was part of a series. I thought it was a standalone. So now I need to go start with The One and The Passengers and The Family Act. I haven't heard the best things about The Family Act, but I just want to fully, experience the world. So I'll probably read it anyways, but maybe I'll get it from the library. But I already own The One and The Passengers, and I hear that that's like his best work. So I'm very excited to get to it. So anyways, so this one is a science fiction novel, and this is about a world where people can't really afford to have kids, and I don't think there's any government restrictions. I don't remember there being anything like you can only have a certain number of kids or anything. I think it's just expensive and people can hardly live on their own, let alone have kids. And, people are waiting later in life, and so it's harder to have kids without doing like IVF, which is even more expensive, and all this different type of stuff. And what I really enjoyed about this story is we get a lot of world building. And so when I read science fiction novels, like, yes, I have to have character development and I have to connect to the characters. But when I read science fiction, I'm more excited about, this futuristic world that we're a part of. And that's what I want to learn about. That's what I want fleshed out, is the world. And so I like stories like this where you have a whole bunch of different perspectives. Like, yes, sometimes it can be a bit confusing to jump around too much, but at the same time, I like getting the nuance and the different perspectives on different aspects of the society that the author is setting up. And so that's what really appealed to me about this book, is we get to know about, people that can't afford kids and maybe they're having troubles with their spouse or whatever. And then you have like a gay couple, or you have like a couple that already had a kid, but they have a hard time with that kid and they want to kind of try again, or just like different perspectives on having kids and being in this futuristic society. And so I really like that. I've discovered in myself that I'm more of a plot driven reader. Like, yes, I need to connect to the characters, yes, I need character development. Like, I don't want just a cardboard cutout. But at the same time, I don't need that to be the focus. Like, I'm not really a character-driven person per se. I'm more into the plot. And so if you have a book that's just like meandering around, I'm like, okay, get to the point. So anyways, so this one is more plot-driven, but you do learn about these characters. And I don't feel like they were one-dimensional. For jumping around to so many perspectives, I think John Myers did a pretty decent job of fleshing them out enough that we can connect to them and we can understand the story. So anyways, this was a win for me. Really enjoyed it. So I don't read a whole ton of romance, but I do like it and I try to read it more often. But for this year, my favorite romance that I read was The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. I thought this was really fun and pretty funny at some parts, and I really enjoyed it. So this is about a girl who is a screenwriter, and she gets the opportunity to write with this famous screenwriter because he usually does like thrillers or like military, or I don't know, like fast-paced butch type action movies. But he just wrote a rom-com and it's atrocious. And so his agent used to go out with her until he realized he was gay. And so they're still friends, but obviously they're not going to get back together. But he kind of calls her and is like, hey, I'm working with this famous writer and he really doesn't know what he's doing. Can you please come help him? And she's like, wow, he is my idol. I love this man. And so she's so excited to go work with her idol. And so she gets there and discovers that he had no idea she was coming. And he was pretty pissed off that his agent thinks that he needs help. And so it starts out terribly, but it was just a lot of fun. I really liked the dialogue, the way they interacted with each other, the banter. I don't know, it was fun. I mean, it wasn't like a perfect 5-star, I would say, but it was a decent 4-star and the best romance that I read this year, and I just had fun with it. This has no smut in it, which I always appreciate. I'm not a smut reader. I find it kind of boring, honestly, and so I was pleasantly surprised not to have that distraction, because sometimes the story just turns into nothing but smut, and then it's like, okay, like I don't really care, just get on with the story. So anyway, so I personally appreciated that, and I really enjoyed this one. Okay, so I have 5 thrillers that made my top list, and 2 of them I just recently read in November, so I'm not going to go into detail about them because I literally just talked about them in my November wrap-up. So if you missed that video, I'll have it linked at the end. If you have seen it, then you already know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to mention what they are. So the first one is The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. And then the other one is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. So I just thought these were really good. I know I say I'm not a character-driven person, but The Heiress, my favorite part was learning about the heiress and her character. I thought she was very fascinating. And I just thought they were fun. This one, I didn't figure out who it was, so that was pleasing. And I liked the dynamics between the siblings. So yeah, I thought these were really good. But again, I just talked at length about these books, so that's all I'm going to say about them. Okay, so the next one is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This was the last Riley Sager book that I had to read. Well, actually, I think I read this one before Final Girls. I read both Final Girls and Lock Every Door this year. Did not really care for Final Girls, but this one was phenomenal. So if you like Rosemary's Baby, I think you'll enjoy this book because it has that creepy atmospheric apartment building vibe, and she just moves into this swanky apartment that she didn't think she could afford, but then the residents are kind of weird and there's a mystery, and one of her neighbors goes missing and nobody seems to care except for her, and I just thought it was great fun. I really enjoyed it. And then we have The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I read this for a video talking about the allegations that Frida McFadden plagiarized this book. And while I think those allegations are probably true, having read this one and The Last Mrs. Parrish, but I preferred this one. I thought it was really fun, and she changed the ending, and I loved the ending. I thought it was so cool, and it was a really enjoyable thriller, and it was very easy to read, very digestible, very fast-paced, and I enjoyed it. Because I say that at the end of everything in this video. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. But I did. I enjoyed it. And then we have Everyone is Watching by Heather Gutenkopf. I think that's how you say this last name. And this one is like a reality show type book. And I haven't read very many books that are like that. And so I thought that was a really fun and interesting aspect of the story. So this is about these contestants that go on this reality TV show that they have to go through mazes and solve riddles and different things like that. But then there's other stuff going on in the background that's, kind of nefarious. And they're starting to realize that they recognize people there. The contestants that recognize the other contestants. And they're like, I thought this was supposed to be random people. So why do I know these people? And so they realize that they're there not just for the show, but they're there for a different purpose. But this isn't a perfect book by any means, but it was just so much fun, and it was such a refreshing concept, and I just really enjoyed it, as I enjoyed all of these. Okay, so now I have 3 horror books that made the list, and my very top favorite horror book of this year was Boys in the Valley. I don't know why I loved this book so much, but it was just so good. It was not like any other horror book I've read. and I just thought it was really fun. This is a possession story, but I felt like it was a really unique one, and it was done in a way that I hadn't seen before. And so when it first sets up, it kind of was like, okay, this is going to be the run-of-the-mill possession story. But then all of a sudden, no, it's not. And things get crazy and wild and dramatic, and I just loved it. So this is about these boys that live at this orphanage, and they're taken care of by this priest or a few priests, I should say. It was very sad in the beginning because these boys are not treated very well, and they're isolated, and this is a cold and snowy book, so this would be a perfect one to pick up this time of year. And you really feel the cold and the dreariness and the abuse, and it's very sad. But I also love this book because sometimes horror books tend to be just very depressing and just sad, But this one, it had really sad elements and very dark elements, and it's not a happy book, but at the same time, it kind of has that hopefulness in it, and you have like the hero of the book that's gonna save the day, and you can root for them, and I really like that, kind of the good versus evil, kind of what you get with fantasy books, but making it very dark and depressing. But I just like it when those things are combined. So you have somebody to root for, you have some of that hope, but it's also got all the sadness that you expect from a horror book. So I just thought this was really fun and really well done, and I really enjoyed it. And then we have The Madness by Don Kurtovich, and I cannot say enough good things about this book. I absolutely adored this book. So this is a Dracula retelling, but it's not like any Dracula retelling I've ever read before, because not only is it modern, but it had a bunch of role reversals where a lot of the male characters from Dracula are now female. And this reads more like a serial killer thriller, but with vampires. And it was so good and so interesting. And I just really liked this book. It was so good. So if you have not read this yet, I highly recommend it. And then last but not least, we have Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. I thought this was really fun, really good. I didn't love the ending, but I just thought it was a fun ride to get there. It had really creepy elements, really good imagery. I think that was probably the strongest part, is the imagery. And I loved having the perspective of a little girl. And this reminds me of a really dark version of Caroline, because you have like Other Mommy, where you have this little girl and she sees this woman that comes out of her closet, and it, nobody else can see it from her. It's like her secret little friend, but it's more like a mom, so she calls her Other Mommy. But it's also paralleled with the fact that her parents bicker and they might get a divorce and different things, and so she kind of has this other parent figure that she really relied on for a time, but then all of a sudden she's starting to realize that Other Mommy maybe isn't a good person. And so she doesn't know what to do about it. She doesn't know how to get rid of her at this point. And what was really interesting about this book was eventually the parents do realize that Other Mommy is there and she's not imaginary. And that's very unique, to this type of story. Usually the whole time, the parents don't believe the kid. They're just like, it's in your head, it's in your imagination. But no, in this book, they actually get to see Other Mommy, and it freaks them out. And it's so interesting to see the parents and the adults freaking out because they know that this shouldn't be real. This can't be happening. But you parallel that with this little girl that, she's still a child and she still believes in Santa Claus. She still believes in Tooth Fairy. And so in her mind, it's not that weird, and so she's more freaked out that the adults are freaking out. And I don't know, I just thought it was a great dynamic, and I just thought this was incredibly fun. The formatting is pretty weird in this book, but if you can get past the formatting, then I think you're in for a treat. So anyways, so those are my 10 favorite books of the year. Please let me know in the comment section below if any of these made your own list, or if maybe some of these didn't work for you. I would love to know your opinion on them. And I post every Friday, and I will see you in the next video. See ya.